Check 1 2, check, check, check. Hello, good morning. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. And you'll be glad as well because fan favorite, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski will be joining us somewhere around the 7 o'clock hour. I say somewhere because it could be a little before, could be a couple minutes in. That's the fun because he travels to come into the studio, and we do appreciate that. So it's not too late to get questions in for him. We're going to ask him what he thought, of course, of the debate and some of the things we've been talking about on the program the last few days and weeks. First off, a comment from a viewer, and this piqued my interest. So I'll ask you what you think. This viewer's prediction: if President Trump wins, he will get his plans rolling, and once they are comfortably in place and succeeding, he will retire from the office and JD will continue in his place. I think after the dust settles, after all that he's been through, he's going to need to retire. Interesting theory. I have not heard that elsewhere. So as I said, it piqued my interest. So thank you for that. Speaking of all that Trump has been through, somewhat breaking news this morning, published early, and you may have heard it late last night. Federal prosecutors requested an indefinite delay in scheduling the trial for Ryan Routh, the suspect in the second assassination attempt on former President Trump, citing an enormous amount of evidence gathered since his arrest. In a filing on Wednesday, prosecutors asked Florida District Judge Eileen Cannon to officially designate Routh's case as, quote, complex. Now, Jonathan Turley suggests this is so they can add more charges. Prosecutors revealed the scope of the investigation, which spanned multiple states, involved hundreds of interviews, and included hundreds of digital media for review. The government has worked diligently since September 15th to investigate the incident. Over the past 2 weeks, the United States has interviewed hundreds of witnesses. It has also executed 13 search warrants in Florida, Hawaii, and North Carolina, and seized hundreds of items of evidence, including multiple electronic devices. The investigators claim that they have more than 100 outstanding subpoena returns that are still pending, and they estimate that they have thousands of videos to review from the large volume of electronic devices seized, which makes sense if you recall that he even had a GoPro camera on to record the whole what he was what's alleged to be an assassination attempt. All videos, still images, text files, and audio constitute approximately 4,000 terabytes, which, if this interests you, is 4 million gigabytes of digital review to complete. The filing noted that the FBI is continuing to conduct forensic tests on evidence, including ballistic testing and fingerprint and DNA comparisons, saying that the evidence would likely include preparing several expert witnesses to testify. Due to the sheer amount of evidence collected, prosecutors asked Cannon for the trial to be delayed indefinitely to allow adequate time for parties to review the discovery and determine which motions need to be filed. So the headline kind of gets you indefinitely. Sometimes sounds like it's the end, but it is not. It's putting all their ducks in a row, so to speak. The government also requested that the motion deadlines, calendar call, and trial date set to also be delayed indefinitely. According to the filing, Roth's defense attorney did not oppose the prosecutor's request to delay the trial date. Roth is facing attempted assassination charges. There's also, as I had mentioned, Jonathan Turley saying on Fox, something to the extent of this could be to bring even more charges along the way. Okay, a couple quick news stories to start with. Yes, Jack Smith, and this is something we'll be talking with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski about. Jack Smith unveiled, or unsealed, I should say, his motion in the election interference case. Excuse me. It's early this morning. We can talk about that. This evidence dump in October, we've talked about October surprises extensively here, and it's only October the 3rd. Also, you perhaps saw that Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, there's past claims of domestic violence. That was another, I guess you would call, October surprise. So that really not getting the traction in the mainstream media. Not something, of course, that they would want to bring up. Anything that could hurt the Harris-Walz campaign. They begrudgingly had to admit in some instances that Walz lost that debate, but others are still trying to defend him, which we hopefully will get to on the program this morning. First off, on a wacky note, I guess some people are having flashbacks to the COVID pandemic era because toilet paper shortages in stores across America are giving many the flashback. Why? Because of the strike and the closing of the ports. Reports of shortages have filled social media in the last day, and it's because of panic buying. It's interesting, and it was interesting at the time of the beginning of the pandemic, how really toilet paper is people's main focus. They cleaned out the toilet paper at my local Walmart, said one Twitter user. Toilet paper hoarding 2.0. Now, what I have read does not seem as if that is an item that will be affected by this strike. Some of maybe depending on your daily lifestyle, one thing that could be affected, that maybe you'll want to start stockpiling. Alcohol could be delayed. Electronics, bananas. Expect shortages of bananas, booze, chocolate, cherries. If there's a long port strike, imports account for nearly 100% of the U.S. supply of bananas, America's most popular fruit by volume, which is something I learned today. All right, so there's your news this morning. Let's talk about, and there's plenty of other news as well that we will be getting to. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Al-Khamenei, told the West to essentially get lost from the Middle East after his country launched a massive barrage of missiles at Israel. And, of course, we mentioned it yesterday on the program, reading Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. Israeli officials have vowed payback within days over the Iranian strike. As the Middle East inched closer to a long-feared all-out war, the terror-supporting Iranian leader blamed the current escalation on the U.S. and some European countries that falsely claim they bring peace and tranquility to the region. That was an exact quote. Now, what's interesting is how the media is trying to spin this, the escalation, just in general, the Middle East on fire. so many issues, both domestically and internationally, that reflect so poorly on the Biden-Harris administration. And it's almost a woe is me. CNN wording it in the way that everybody seems, everything's out against Kamala. What? I mean, she has been vice president for the last 3.5 years. So I think when you look at this, Israel going after not just Iran, but of course Hamas, Hezbollah, I don't think initially when I read the reports and really had that, I'm sure like many of you, that strike of kind of fear and anger when you first heard of Iran attacking Israel. My first thought wasn't, how is this going to affect the presidential campaign? Unfortunately, that's not how the people at the CNNs of the world think. Everything is from the lens of their party remaining in power or staying in power or getting power. The Ayatollah al-Khamenei added that Iran was hopeful of getting, quote, rid of enemies' evil and urged Western nations to, quote, cut their badness. Some of this may get lost in translation. His remarks to a crowd in Tehran came just hours after he ordered nearly 200 ballistic missiles to be fired at the Jewish state late on Tuesday, dozens of which penetrated air defenses and struck Tel Aviv and other heavily populated areas. While Israel and the U.S. quickly promised to retaliate against Tehran's latest assault, Iran doubled down Wednesday and vowed to carry out even more crushing attacks on infrastructure if the threats were followed through on. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Iran had, quote, made a big mistake tonight and it will pay for it. And this is right at the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. Meanwhile, the violence continued to escalate as the Israel-Lebanon border, as Israel troops stepped up the pressure on the Iran-backed, Hezbollah. The Israeli military said infantry and armored units were now joining its ground operations in Lebanon. This does play an interesting role, too, since the mainstream media wants to tie this in with politics. It plays an interesting role because of the tightrope that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have to walk when it comes to appeasing the side, as Van Jones said, of the Democrat Party that is marbled with this kind of anti-Semitic bigotry. So it's very, very tough road to hoe to keep everybody in the Democrat Party happy. Now, Biden, of course, calling for Israel to take a step back, calling for calm. It's always Israel's fault in a way when it comes to Biden's response that don't escalate this. You almost have to ignore what's been done to Israel. The ballistic missiles, you have to ignore the October 7th terrorist attack. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what Joe Biden had to say. We just have a couple of quick things about international stories. Then we are going to get to a little bit more on the vice presidential debate, though not a ton, because I know we spent pretty much the whole show exclusively on that yesterday. We also do have a few things here just about the campaigns in general, both the Trump campaigns and the Harris campaigns. And if we get a chance, it's one of those days where there's going to be stories that we just have to report on that there's no real smooth segue. So keep that in mind. But let's take our first break. And again, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky will be joining us a little bit later on. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
You just have to get in the seat of a John Deere 1 Series tractor. Not because of how easy it is to use, or because of our expert dealers. Not even because it has implements for every job. You just have to get in the seat, because breaking ground on your dream home feels pretty great.
Right now at Lindsay Equipment, get up to $1,000 off and 0% financing for 60 months on all 2023 John Deere compact tractors in stock.
The time has arrived. Hesselson's Annual tent sale is going on now through Sunday. 4 days of huge savings in all departments. Hunting clothing, work and hunting boots, general clothing, socks, swimming pools, hot tubs, and much, much more. If you're looking for unbelievable savings and great deals, Hesselson's annual tent sale is a place to be. But come in early for the best selection as quantities are limited. With savings like this, now is a perfect time to stock up on all of your holiday shopping and hunting, clothing, and footwear needs. But for 4 days only, it's Hesselson's huge annual tent sale will end Sunday at 3 p.m. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a
And we are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We should be broadcasting live from the Hesselson's tent sale. Well, it doesn't go on then. Thank you to Hesselson's for making sure that it doesn't open today until after, frankly speaking, so you can watch the full show and then get ready to go. And I saw the ad that it opens today at 9. And if you've never been to a Hesselson's tent sale, it comes highly recommended. I look forward to it every year, but I never even thought about that. We should be broadcasting live from the tent sale. All right. So Biden says he does not support an attack on Iran's nuclear sites, saying to reporters before boarding Air Force One, Joe Biden, quote, will be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do. But all 7 of us, meaning the G7 nations, agree that they have a right to respond, but they should respond proportionately. Iran is way off board. There's going to be some sanctions imposed on Iran. But when a reporter specifically asked if he would support an Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, Biden said no. And I wonder why that is specifically, because it has been reported that Iran is very near, very close to a nuclear bomb. So why would you not want to kind of nip that in the bud? I'm no international expert, but to me that seems like maybe for Israel's protection, as we see Iran bombing Tel Aviv, that maybe that would be the first place to go. Now, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters they discussed, meaning G7, Iran's unacceptable attack against Israel. Biden expressed the United States' full solidarity and support to Israel and its people and reaffirmed the United States' commitment to Israel's security. Now, U.S. Deputy Secretary Kurt Campbell said the administration was seeking to align its position with Israel on any response to Iran's attack, but also recognized the Middle East is on a knife's edge and a broader escalation could imperil both Israel and U.S. interests. Speaking at a virtual event, Campbell repeated the U.S. view that what Tehran has undertaken was deeply irresponsible and that there must be a return message. I think we tried to underscore our support for some of the actions that Israel has taken. We have a real wariness about an extended or substantial ground set of operations in Lebanon. Well, what we've learned specifically with the pager explosions, that Israel isn't really checking in with the United States, and I think for good reason. I think, unfortunately, we're at a time where their secrets would not be kept by this administration. Now, Isaac Shore is saying something, and this is specifically at the New York Post, saying something that has been a pretty common trend here on this program, something that we've mentioned numerous times, that the United States must wake up to the danger of Iran's axis of evil with their ties to Russia and China. When Iran launched a brazen attack on Israel Tuesday, lobbing close to 200 ballistic missiles at America's closest Middle Eastern ally, it did so in the comforting certainty that its actions would be supported by two nuclear superpowers and members of the United Nations Security Council. Russia reacted to the barrage by condemning not Tehran, but the United States in a statement parroting the Iranian state media. China, meanwhile, has already pledged to, quote, support Iran in safeguarding its sovereignty, security, territorial integrity, and national dignity against unnamed but easily discernible, quote, external forces. The convergence of world leaders on the UN's headquarters in New York last week made plenty of headlines. Yet the most notable moment from last week's gathering, an Earth's equivalent of the Star Wars cantina scene, was best captured in a photograph, a posed portrait of the foreign ministers of Iran, Russia, and China alongside Pakistan's defense minister. The photo was taken to commemorate a meeting between the four men about the ongoing instability and humanitarian disaster in Afghanistan, but the disturbing context, or subcontext, was the public debut of a dangerous new coalition: Iran, Russia, China, and Pakistan. Following the meeting, Iran issued a press release that denounced the, quote, the destructive role of the U.S. and NATO in Afghanistan. Washington and other NATO members must be held accountable for the current disastrous situation in Afghanistan, they wrote. Now, this statement was merely a pretense for such anti-West drivel, but it served to solidify the burgeoning alliance between Iran, Russia, and China. And again, this is something that we've discussed numerous times on this program. A threat, a real serious threat that is not taken seriously by Washington and really by the United States. President George W. Bush first identified Iran, Iraq, and North Korea as an axis of evil in January of 2002, just months after 9/11, and rightly so. Now a more powerful, more interconnected, and more unpredictable axis is rearing its ugly head. It's amoral as well as a strategic, It's a moral and a strategic imperative that the United States head this one off before it sows more death and destruction across the globe. And that means not only believing the hard truth staring us in the face, but rebuking those who deny it. I do not believe we'll see that from this administration. Now, it is interesting, here we are in October, what happens, and this could very much be after the election. Does China make its move on Taiwan at the same time as the issues in the Middle East? But we've got to wake up to the danger of Iran, Russia, and China. And as Brendan O'Neill said, again, this is with the New York Post, Iran's missile strike was a dud, and it's clear the mad mullahs are losing the war. The known death toll of the wave of missiles fired by Iran into Israel yesterday is as follows: Israelis 0, Palestinians 1. Yes, the Islamic Republic, in its preening, violent display of solidarity with Palestine and Lebanon against the Jewish state, laid waste to just one life, that of a 37-year-old laborer from Gaza who's been living near Jericho in the West Bank, brutally slain by the falling shrapnel from one of Iran's missiles. But those on social media who salivated over Iran's attack were cheering a military operation that killed yet another Gazan. You couldn't make it up. Of course, the lack of Israeli fatalities should not detract from the fact that was clearly Iran's aim, to maim and kill the Jews of this nation that it hates above all other. So it's not something that you can take lightly. And just because it looks as if Iran is losing, it is no time for Israel to back off, no time for them or the U.S. to take it lightly. Okay, so there's our international update this morning. Couple quick announcements. As I mentioned, Joe Sempolinski will be our guest a little bit later on. Listen to the show tomorrow. We are going to be very busy tomorrow. So make sure you set your alarms so you don't miss even a second of it. We're going to be talking with Apple Ridge, and I believe it's pronounced RAD, R-A-A-D, about tomorrow's health fair. There is a health fair at Apple Ridge from 1 to 3 tomorrow. So we're going to learn about that. We're also going to talk with the head coach and a member of the Elmira Aviators, the new hockey team at the Lecom Arena. They're going to be joining us to talk about the season, what to expect. I'll give you a little update on how practice has been going. And then we're going to be talking, and this is not the specific order, but then we'll be talking with a judicial candidate for family court judge in Chemung County, Brian Maggs. So a very, very busy morning tomorrow. So you just want to sit back and relax and make sure you catch the whole thing. Get the coffee started early and be there right at 6, like every morning. Really. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
A mag knife taking this much abuse and didn't need sharpening. Introducing the incredible NutriBlade knives, coated with granite stone non-stick and made of stainless steel. One of the hardest substances on earth. Now everyone can chop, slice, and dice just like a pro. Order right now to get this professional 6-piece set of NutriBlades for just $29.95. We'll even ship them to you free. Get your own NutriBlade knives, the last knives you'll ever buy.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-977-4997. That's 1-800-977-4997, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a lot to cover. As you could tell, at 26 minutes in, we've covered a lot. So let's talk quickly about the debate, the vice presidential debate on Tuesday. I know we discussed it extensively. There's a few other things I wanted to comment on it, and of course we'll be asking former Congressman Joe Sempolinski about it. But Bill Ackerman, the billionaire hedge fund manager, he did not pull any punches in what he saw from the VP debate. He said J.D. Vance is whip smart, measured, unflappable, and fair and respectful to Walz. What's not to like? I find myself feeling sorry for Walz. He seems like a nice guy, but in a way, but in way over his head to be second in line to run the country. A bit of a buffoon, but in a good way. A kind man that will get his face ripped off in a negotiation. Wow, this is again billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman. Not someone that I want making consequential decisions for all Americans. Well, there was a point that was made yesterday that he was literally shaky when he said that we needed steady leadership. Listen, it goes without saying, because I said it so much yesterday and so many others echoed that statement, that it was the most nervous. I think maybe it was Rich Lowry who said it. The most nervous I've ever seen of a national candidate. When you get to that level, and especially someone like him who had been in politics 20 years, and again, there's always nerves. J.D. Vance said he was out of a scale of 1 to 10 on 11. But there's a difference between anxious to get something started and to get into it, and nervous because you are on a national stage. And let's face it, the media isn't covering Vance in a positive way to that extent, meaning that he has the opportunity to reach mega millions of people. And that was his opportunity. So obviously you don't want to let your boss down, meaning Donald Trump, but you don't also want to let your party down. So there's got to be a ton of pressure. But Walz, same, tons of pressure. But what has been said by so many people, and it's spot on, it goes to raise serious questions and red flags as to why Kamala Harris did not pick Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. Because if you've seen him, he is a good public speaker. It was reported, and I don't know if this was just to lower the bar, which it was a good thing that the Harris campaign did try to lower the bar, because if they would have tried to raise it up, it would not have been good. But him saying that he was not a good debater, saying throughout history he hasn't been a good debater. That Ackman wrote that Tuesday night's debate served as a clear reference check on presidential frontrunners Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump and their ability to identify and recruit talent, which is also a very good point about who you hire. Quote like this again, hedge fund billionaire manager, hedge fund manager, Bill Ackman saying, you can judge the quality of a leader by the talent and integrity of their direct reports. Strong leaders hire team members that are smarter than they are. Weak leaders hire weak direct reports. They don't want to be outshone by the people they employ. You have to give Trump credit for choosing J.D. Vance, even though Vance was initially critical of him. I don't know if we'll see more coverage of Vance in the media, his rallies. One thing that I think really can't be overstated is he's done so much press. He's done so many rallies where at the end of the rallies, he takes the questions from the media that he was prepared. It's like anything else. You have to have practice. You have to put in the hours. Where Walz has been completely silent, MIA. I mean, he wasn't doing even the local interviews, or at least if he had been, it hasn't been reported on. I see he gave a quick interview yesterday, maybe them saying, hey, we got to get out there now. Now we got to play a little catch-up or behind the eight ball. Because if Harris and Walz continue to run this campaign this way, I don't know if it speaks of confidence to too many voters, either those on the fence, those undecided. I don't know if it helps their campaign if they continue to run their campaign the way they have been, which is kind of the Biden strategy, the basement strategy. Former Harris advisor complained about Walz's niceties. Listen to this. Simone Sanders Townsend was on MSNBC saying debates are about performance and they're about policy. And why this debate was very important is that there are so many Americans out there, not just moderate Republicans, there are base Democrat voters that are saying they want to and need to hear more. Now, I think it is very fair for people to want to criticize those base Democrat voters who say, well, what more do you need? You could do that. But that is their lived reality. And so if you're trying to win their votes, you have to meet them where they are. There are so many niceties on the debate stage tonight. I'm just kind of like, well, if you agree so much with J.D. Vance, why should they vote for you? Essentially telling Walz, okay, if Vance is so good, why vote for your ticket? I fully believe that Governor Walz went out there tonight and did what was practiced in debate prep, did what the strategy was that the team put together. That was not the Governor Walz that I have seen out on the campaign trail. That's not the Governor Walz that I had seen during the Veep stakes, right? That was not the J.D. Vance that I know to be true. I mean, my goodness, J.D. Vance was on the stage. He was sorry about Amber Thurman. He was sorry about a lot of stuff. We get things wrong, but do you agree with the policy? Now, MSNBC's Joy Reid had this to say, and we're just playing a little bit, if you're just joining us, just playing a little bit of kind of recap of the vice presidential debate. Joy Reid on MSNBC saying Tim Walz was very detailed, and he spoke the way a governor speaks about really specific issues like gun violence, like healthcare. He was substantive and knowledgeable. So if you are the person who the thing that is keeping you on the fence is you need more details, he gave you more details. Now, I think that's a little rewriting of history. But this is, again, quoting Joy Reid. She continued, I don't think that small, narrow group of people wanted to see a fist fight. And so I think that the people who want the fist fight are the base of the Democrat Party. I guess this is toning down the rhetoric. So the people that want to see the fist fight are the base of the Democrat Party. Democrats want to see someone get up there and give a knuckle sandwich to Donald Trump. I haven't heard that term in a long time, but is that the best use of your soapbox at a time when we're supposed to be calming the rhetoric about a man who has had 2 attempted assassinations on his life? But I'll continue. Democrats want to see someone get up there and give a knuckle sandwich to Donald Trump. That's what they want, but that's not the group of people who need this debate. Those people are already voting, already know what they want. I think the reason Tim Walz was effective, I think that's the reason Tim Walz was effective. It is a strange group of people. These people who can't decide between arsenic and pancakes. It's very hard to say these two things are equal, but those are those people. Okay, interesting. We've got 2-3 more things on this maybe, and then we'll wrap up that discussion because we have a lot to cover this morning, and we have Joe Semplinsky, and we always spend a lot of time with him talking about all the issues of the day. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
The time has arrived. Hesselson's annual tent sale is going on now through Sunday. 4 days of huge savings in all departments. Hunting clothing, work and hunting boots, general clothing, socks, swimming pools, hot tubs, and much, much more. If you're looking for unbelievable savings and great deals, Hesselson's annual tent sale is the place to be. But come in early for the best selection as quantities are limited. With savings like this, now is a perfect time to stock up on all of your holiday shopping and hunting clothing and footwear needs. But for 4 days only, it's Hesselson's huge annual tent sale will end Sunday at 3 p.m. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Great drivers change lanes very fast, but with no outside mirrors. How come they don't crash? Introducing Angel View, the new wide-angle mirror that reduces blind spots. Angel View simply snaps over your car's rear view mirror, giving you a 160-degree view behind you. Ordinary rear view mirrors are small and flat, but Angel View has a huge mirror with curved glass. This convex shape allows you to see both blind spots with one glance. And with our Pro Edition special coating, it's anti-glare at night. Get your Angel View now for just $19.99 through this special offer. But wait, this may be your last chance to get Angel View at this low price. There is a strict limit of 2 Angel Views per order while supplies last. Order now.
Call 1-800-869-5346. That's 1-800-869-5346. Or visit getangelview.com. So call 1-800-869-5346 now.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks are a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen One, the portable oxygen concentrator you can take almost anywhere.
With this little device, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
The Inogen One is so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen One for 30 days completely risk-free. Give us a call right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days completely risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen One system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 1-800-929-7290. Again, that's 1-800-929-7290. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Wrapping up our discussion on the vice presidential debate, and feel free to weigh in anytime, and also feel free to get your questions in for former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. The New York Post editorial board, I thought, had a very good takeaway from this that they published late yesterday, saying that the debate was a huge eye-opener, but not just about the candidates themselves, especially if you were not familiar with the candidates. Now, it would be easy to not be familiar with Walz because he doesn't do the media that Vance does, so that's not really a surprise, but if you tuned in, you learned a lot. The candidates first. Tim Walz now stands exposed as a fantasist, one whose lies are only about little things. He's not only made up his claims to have served in combat, but also about being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre. Maybe in Minnesota you can get away with bragging of being a coach rather than an assistant coach who's unpaid because of your drunk driving conviction. But on the national stage, compulsive deception carries major consequences and could readily endanger the nation. And no, Tim, there is no hate speech exemption to the First Amendment. Frankly, that he doesn't seem to know that proves all by itself that Walz isn't ready for prime time. And this is an important point, and a point that Ackman made that we were talking about earlier, that it exposes Kamala Harris's terrible judgment in picking him as her running mate over the far more effective Governor Josh Shapiro. I mean, that alone, to Ackman's point, the billionaire hedge fund man, that if that's her decision in hiring, that goes to show a huge red flag. But think about it. When you look at the work environment that she's created, what was it, as VP, something like 90% of her quote-unquote employees left. So there's a lot more there that I think could be dissected when it comes to her hiring practices. Okay, so I continue here. Vance, meanwhile, and whatever reason you think she didn't hire Governor Josh Shapiro to be the VP, there's other deeper dives we could take there. But continuing, Vance, meanwhile, disproved the weird charge, first coined by Walz, by the way. Finally handed the chance to address the whole nation. He proved charming, polite, and full of common sense, and also sharp, rightly facing down the bias of CBS moderators Margaret Brennan and Norah O'Donnell. Time and time again, the moderators pushed misinformation in their questions. Time and again, Vance gently established the actual facts and/or deftly pivoted to address issues the voters care about, rather than the agenda of the smug but shockingly ignorant media elite. Yes, very smug. That is something that was, I think, a big takeaway, especially with that fact check and that comment at the end where, the fact checkers don't like to be fact checked. And so when Vance was continuing to school them on the law, she said, well, thanks for that law lesson type of attitude. It was very unbecoming of a quote-unquote journalist, but I'll continue. To tell the truth, we expected Vance to wipe the floor with Walz. Anyone who's watched them both with any objectivity would bet that way. But most viewers were likely surprised because the mainstream media, and this is a big takeaway from that debate, haven't been presenting the candidates honestly. It's as if they're treating the Harris-Walz campaign's talking points as baseline truth, and the fact of the matter, they are. They deem anything that Trump says or that Vance says as a lie, and they deem anything that Harris or Walz releases in a statement as the gospel truth, and that's how the newscasts are. So if you were not familiar with either candidate, which many probably weren't, you would have been shocked during the debate saying, wait a minute, this isn't what the mainstream media has been telling me for the last few months. The mainstream media is telling me that Vance is weird and probably the worst vice presidential pick in history. And they've been telling me Walz is this folksy, nice, down-to-earth guy, but very intelligent, very politically minded. It was completely, their narrative was completely thrown on its head. Sadly, this isn't just a temporary result, according to the New York Post, of Trump derangement syndrome. It's more like the ingrained bias is the cause of TDS. Most of America's media elite, indeed much of the U.S. elite, period, are stuck deep in an ideological bubble. And rather than face the fact, they strike out at anyone who challenges their complacency. How many times do they have to get mugged by reality before they wake up. I don't think, again, just like with the moderators from ABC, I don't think it actually bothers them that their bias has been exposed, because at the end of the day, they're doing their quote-unquote job, their goal. So they'll still be going to the cocktail parties. They'll still be going to the media parties and getting pats on the back from the quote-unquote elite. So I don't, and you probably say, well, what about profit? What about, I think at the end of the day, in their mind, the cause is more important than losing ratings, because there is kind of a narcissism there that people will always tune in to the mainstream media. People will always be there. And even though places like CNN, the ratings are suffering, it's not enough to make them change their attitudes and obviously not change their beliefs. It also, as Joe Concha from Fox said, the debate kind of revealed that Tim Walz is a fraud. He's not that everyman that we've been told. Much of America got to know Walz for the first time during the debate. Unlike his appearance at the Democratic National Convention, the Walz we saw on the debate stage didn't have his words written for him on a teleprompter. And the unfiltered version underscored a very obvious fact about the governor. He is patently fake. For starters, how about this Coach Walz nonsense, which he broached yet again on Tuesday? Let's be real. Being an assistant volunteer coach isn't exactly something to brag about. Walz always leaves out the assistant volunteer part of the title to make himself out to be the second coming of Vince Lombardi. That's a great way of wording it. But going back to what they're saying, it is very much like Harris. When off teleprompter, it does not go smoothly, right? And this has been stated by both sides of the aisle. That's why it is known that's why she's not giving the interviews, because of the word salad potential. So she's not giving the interviews. She's not doing the press conferences. She's not taking the questions. Neither is Walz, because they're trying to run a campaign that just gets them over the finish line, the basement style campaign, but on kind of on steroids at this point, to just keep it as quiet and low key with the attack ads. And I've talked to numerous friends that live in these kind of swing states, saying that the ads are nonstop. And the ads, because Kamala has such a big war chest, that the ads are effective. And you can say, no, people hate negative ads. They hate that stuff. It's effective. It works. That's just the facts of life, unfortunately. So her campaign strategy, give rallies in front of friendly crowds with the teleprompters, and then get your quote-unquote message out through perhaps local media interviews, because they're not going to do as much pushback. But really, it's about the attack ads and the constant praising her up ads and attacking Trump. And unfortunately, they are effective. And unfortunately, she's got a lot of money to spend. But continuing, then there was Walz's goofy 80s sitcom dad shtick that was meant to be endearing and relatable, but is a cringy one, just like Kamala's fraudulent accents. Just check out his answer to the question about why he's claimed to be in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protests when he was actually in Nebraska. And that calling himself a knucklehead, those type of things. How comforting to know a self-described knucklehead could be one heartbeat away from controlling the nuclear codes. The filibuster of an answer went on for a full 2 minutes without addressing why he had lied about being in China at that critical moment, prompting co-moderator Margaret Brennan to press him on the actual response, which shocked him. That's not how it's supposed to go for Democrats. So I think that kind of almost, if anything, angered him. Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy? And he said, quote, no. All I said on this was, I got there that summer and misspoke on this, so that's what I've said. So he misspoke. Who among us hasn't made such a flub, stating we were in Asia when we were actually on the other side of the world? The phony lied, just like he lied about serving in war zones, when in reality he ditched his National Guard unit when he was about to be deployed to Iraq. Walz's closing statement was a doozy that underscored his fundamental fakery. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class. It was truly stunning to hear this lame used car salesman patter as Walz tried to convince us that the sitting vice president, whose administration is responsible for this disastrous economy, is the change candidate bringing us a new way forward, while we all bask in her politics of joy. Kamala has been in the office for more than 1,350 days, yet we're supposed to pretend the Biden-Harris administration never happened. So that's Joe Concha. There's other points to be made, but I thought that was worth reporting on. As we had mentioned earlier, there are a lot of breaking stories this morning. one, that the trial for the second assassination attempt, the alleged assassination attempt, that has been delayed indefinitely, or prosecutors are attempting to delay it indefinitely just because they're trying to get all their ducks in a row, so to speak. Also, of course, we're going to talk with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski about Jack Smith's evidence dump yesterday against the ex-president. But we've got to take a short break because I'm running a little bit late, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
The time is at Hesselson's annual tent sale is going on now through Sunday. 4 days of huge savings in all departments. Hunting clothing, work and hunting boots, general clothing, socks, swimming pools, hot tubs, and much, much more. If you're looking for unbelievable savings and great deals, Hesselson's annual tent sale is the place to be. But come in early for the best selection as quantities are limited. With savings like this, now is a perfect time to stock up on all of your holiday shopping and hunting clothing and footwear needs. But for 4 days only, it's Hesselson's huge annual tent sale will end Sunday at 3 p.m. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is History Making. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. Thanks for joining us this morning. A couple comments from viewers. Shouldn't the media's job be to report factual news and not just be pushing its own agenda? And then says, good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. We'll add that. Yes, but that's not what... With the new addition of fact-checking, I think it's become even more crystallized that there is that bias, and I think it goes without saying that if you watch, the nightly news, the 6 o'clock news, you will see, or the national news, I should say, you will see that bias played out. Another comment from a different viewer saying, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Why is no one talking about Harris's staff throughout her career, even as VP, have high turnover? Yes, something like 90%. But don't you remember the media tried to spin it by saying, now she's unleashed. This is great. She never had the right people around her, which is a bad sign when you're hiring, by the way, but never had good people around her. So now we're seeing the real Harris. That was when they were pushing the momentum at the very beginning, saying, wow, we were all wrong. We thought she shouldn't run. We thought maybe that she wouldn't make a good candidate, but clearly she is. It was those people behind the scenes that were keeping her down. But continuing with this comment, they can't work with her, so they quit. Not like Trump staff who get fired for doing a terrible job, yes, and then come out and are angry and write these tell-alls. Isn't it interesting, speaking of that, and it's a good segue. Oh, so many comments coming in. We'll get to those in just a moment because I do have to take another break. But isn't it interesting that a lot of the evidence in Jack Smith's dump against the ex-president, and don't think for a moment, this goes back to why Trump always talks about lawfare, right? Because what is this? This is using the court systems. Originally, they wanted it so that he would have the convicted felon attached to his name. Now it is to affect the election. I don't think either party, Democrat, Republican, are really surprised by this, that this would be when this is released, right? And so it comes as no surprise. But isn't it always interesting that someone, when they have these type of things, someone overheard the president talking to his family, and the president said this outrageous thing. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but at some point the hearsay gets a little out of hand, right? So the 165-page filing by special counsel Jack Smith in the 2020 election subversion case was released yesterday, just 34 days before Americans go to the polls to decide whether he should be returned to the White House. Most of Smith's motion, or response to the Supreme Court's ruling earlier this year that the president enjoyed absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts while in office, rehashed publicly known facts about Trump and his allies and what was happening after his defeat by Joe Biden, with a few jarring anecdotes sprinkled in. The defendant, and I don't want to get into the specifics, and we'll talk to Joe Semplinsky about this, former congressman, but it really is an example of why I think to many people, who was it, Dennis Quaid, saying that the lawfare, and that's the actor, that the lawfares will finally put him over the edge, that he might not like Trump, but he was going to vote for Trump because he didn't like how the system was specifically saying, you can't vote for Trump. We are going to affect the election. And I think the timing of this, it really doesn't come as a surprise. I don't think it has the October surprise aspect to it that they were really hoping, because I think the American people on both sides of the aisle at this point are saying, yeah, it's more lawfare against Trump. This is, how many, kind of like the fog of scandal, right? The fog of war, the fog of lawfare. That at this point, people are saying, what else shocking can you throw at us? Because there's already been, almost three, probably 3 October surprises, quote unquote, and it's October the 3rd. All right, we got more comments coming in. I got to take my last break of this hour as we wait patiently for former Congressman Joe Semplinsky. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Sharing the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Your wallet is always in danger. Criminals can hack your information without you even knowing. Introducing Slim Mint, an ultra-thin RFID blocking wallet that keeps your cards and cash protected. Slim Mint uses the latest RFID blocking technology to prevent thieves from stealing your info. It's ergonomically designed to optimize space and keep your belongings organized. With the auto-locking Slim Mint, your cards and money stay securely in place. It has a built-in cash clip and a flexible outer band to fit your additional cards and cash. Call or click now and get Slim Mint for just $29.99. Order in the next 5 minutes and you'll get an instant $10 discount, so it's only $19.99. But wait, due to rising costs, this may be your last chance to get Slim Mint at this low price. There's a strict limit of 3 Slim Mint wallets while supplies last. Don't wait, order now.
Call 1-800-654-6604. Call or visit slimmintwallet.com. So call 1-800-654-6604. Order now.
Back. It is hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, and joining me in the studio is former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. Hey, Joe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I walked into the hot tub, as I call it, the studio.
Yes.
And it's almost still dark.
It is.
At this time of year, it's only going to get gloomier. I mean, I like fall. My younger daughter especially loves fall. She can't get enough of leaves and whatnot. She's 4, for the record. So there's a lot of wonderful things happening this time of year, including elections. But it does get a little dark in the morning here in the palatial studios on Market Street in Corning.
Well, dark in the morning, then you leave work. Sometimes it's getting dark.
When it gets to that point, especially after the clocks change, and it's that messes with my equilibrium.
Oh yeah,
and it's not good.
Yeah. So does that mean because the clock changes on the 2nd and the election day's on the 5th, you're going to vote Democrat? Is that what you're saying?
No.
The equilibrium.
No, let's not get crazy. I may get a little cattywampus, but I will not be filling in any bubbles on row A.
Okay, all right, that's fair. We're going to be talking about, obviously, the local elections coming up. But we've got to start with, a couple big, I don't know where you want to start, Jack Smith, or do you want to start with the vice presidential debate?
I think the one people talking about the most is probably the vice presidential debate.
Yeah.
What is interesting, though, about vice presidential debates is, and this is the phenomenon every 4 years, where for a couple days it's the talk of the country,
right?
And then it doesn't dramatically impact the election. And I had a conversation with a couple people about this yesterday. People were amped up about the debate, and it was an interesting contrast in tone between the VP debate and the presidential debates, just because the style between Walz and Harris is very different, and the style between Vance and Trump is dramatically different. Even if there's not policy differences between those two pairs, just the stylistic stuff is very interesting. But I was relaying, a couple people, the most famous moment in the history of a VP debate by far is '88, where Lloyd Bentsen says to then Senator Dan Quayle, I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy's a friend of mine. You're no Jack Kennedy, because Quayle had been making this argument that he wasn't as inexperienced as he appeared to be because he had more experience in Congress than even Kennedy had when he ran for president. And what Bentsen sort of touched on that caught a nerve was, the criticism of Quayle wasn't his inexperience. The criticism of Quayle was that he was sort of a lightweight as a candidate. I went and looked yesterday. That quip, not the debate, the quip itself has its own Wikipedia page. Oh, wow. Right? So it became, if there was a meme in 1988, I don't know if there were memes in 1988, but this would have qualified as this major.
Everybody was quoting it.
Everybody was parodying it, and substituting out Kennedy for some joke or something. What you have to remember is Bush Quayle whooped Dukakis Bentsen. So you had this moment that is still sort of a joke. If you were alive enough, old enough to remember it, it's still sort of a joke for people, 35 years later, and it didn't impact the outcome of the election. So while I think it's interesting to talk about, and I think, again, the stylistic stuff was interesting, the contrast in styles between the two candidates, the two VP candidates, was interesting. Their sort of background is similar but different at the same time. They're both sort of Midwestern, but have taken some interesting paths in their lives, and that's all interesting, but I wouldn't say it's going to dramatically change the race. I think what it may have done for both of them is it was a chance to cut through sort of the internet caricature that the other side is created. We were just talking about this. Or Walz or what have you, and talk on their own terms.
Because if you weren't, we just had a piece about this. If you didn't know really much about, except for what you learned from the mainstream media or from some political Facebook page, something like that, you would have watched and been shocked that night, because you're supposed to have kind of a tough guy, but a good-hearted guy with Walz, and Ben and Vance is supposed to be weird, right? That's the point. And neither of those worked. I mean, Vance came off so cool, calm, and collected. It was kind of almost shocking.
Yeah, and you got to remember, I mean, this is a guy I saw one exchange on X or Twitter or whatever. I still want to call it Twitter.
Yeah.
Where it was somebody who clearly hadn't been very familiar with Vance going, man, this guy's really, really smart.
Yeah.
And the response from somebody who I think was a Vance supporter was like, well,
yeah,
how do you end up at Yale Law School
I know.
if you are from where he's from? Like you have to be. Like you should have assumed he was that smart, but you believed this sort of weird caricature of him. So I thought what Vance did that was smart right out of the gate, his first answer, he says, all right, I'm going to get to that question, but hey,
this
you
is
all
me.
out there, you may not know me, you may not know him.
Yeah.
And this is who I am. This is where I came from. This is my background. This is my family. This is what I did in the military service and the public service, and his situation with his mother, being an addict and his grandma raising him. And he did a really astonishing sort of 45-second version of that, which is tough to do.
And then still answer the question.
Yeah. And you saw that. All right. Well, this guy, there's a reason he is where he is based on, despite where he came from, and the situations that he's dealt with in his life. There's a reason he's running for vice president of the United States, and it's not just this internet caricature,
right?
And probably to some degree you could say that the governor of Minnesota was able to do some of that too. I don't think quite as adeptly as Senator Vance, but it's the positive thing about debates in general, any debate. I think that the reason it has some appeal, even to somebody that is just sort of this casual observer, is we view a lot of politics through a lens, through a very opaque glass, as the media presents it to us, or the campaign, either campaign presents themselves or their opponent to us. And this is the one moment where all that gets stripped away, and it's just you looking at somebody on TV and say, all right, we asked you a question, what's your answer? And you get to judge for yourself. And there's something sort of dramatic about that, and there's something I think very democratic about that, where all right, we got two folks who are going to be, one of these two people is going to be a heartbeat away from being president, and could end up, heaven forbid if there's a tragedy or something, or down the road they run for it, could end up being the leader of the free world.
Sure.
Well, let's see what they have to say. Let's see who they are, as opposed to what somebody on social media says about that person. Well, and it turns out that maybe they're not as weird as we thought they were.
Did you think, I know that you watched politics your whole life, me too. I don't think I've ever seen a national figure, though, that nervous.
Oh, you're talking about Walz?
Yeah, Walz. Yeah, not Vance.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that. It was one of those things where it just became distracting. It's not a political issue.
Yeah.
It just, I was kind of surprised by that. 20 years in politics.
Right. And that was the other thing is, you could see sort of there's a little difference in natural talent, I think, there, as far as communication. J.D. Vance has only been a public official for like a little over a year and a half.
Yeah, I know.
He's and that was one of his challenges, was not only is he unknown, but he doesn't have a ton of elective experience, especially at the national level. He's won a competitive primary and competitive general election in Ohio, no doubt about it. That's a significant accomplishment. Yeah. But he hasn't been in the Senate for 2 terms or something.
Sure.
Walz has been in national level politics for almost 20 years. Yeah. He was a longtime U.S. congressman, has now been governor of, medium-sized state.
Sure.
Minnesota's no joke. It's a significant job. You sort of saw, I think, this is why they haven't been doing as many interviews.
Yeah.
And this is why Vance has.
But isn't that a mistake?
Oh, I agree. Oh, it's absolutely a mistake.
Because J.D. Vance is so prepared for that. Because
that's right.
When you watch the Sunday shows, it's like he's doing a debate with the host.
Yeah.
Every week.
That's right.
When he's doing, and I love what they did at the end of their rallies every time, which is do the press call, or I say press call, that's a flashback.
Press call.
But really going to the press after a rally, because they're always, not always, but they're unfriendly questions, they're biased questions. So he's prepared for what the moderators were going to do and what Walz was going to say.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. There's no substitute for experience.
Yeah.
And you don't want your first big performance to be on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
Right. You want to do all the prep work. You want to get in the reps in the gym. You want to get in the reps, when the whole world is not necessarily watching. And
yeah, you want some preseason games before you go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So Vance was playing every snap in preseason, and then they threw Walls out in the second quarter of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And you saw that to some degree. And I don't get it. If you're gonna be the nominee of either party for president of the United States or vice president, what are you signing up for? I mean, you're signing up to have to deal with this. You can't hide. You can't duck. You're going to have to deal with the press. So you might as well embrace it and lean into it
and get your sea legs early.
That's right. And even then, if you mess up, well, if you're doing so many interviews, tomorrow's going to be another interview, and it'll move off the news cycle.
And I've done that historically, in radio and on TV. That if I know candidates running, I say let's do one early,
right? Just
so you can get, because everybody's nervous the first time on TV, and then we'll do one closer, and that's with both parties.
Well,
it makes for a better show.
What I have found interesting, that it's a news story now that Harris is considering to do an interview. Yeah. That's a news story.
Breaking.
So last week I did an interview with the newspaper in Olean. That's the largest media outlet in the 148th. That's actually based in the 148th Assembly District. Certainly the Elmira media market covers it and the Buffalo media market covers it. But as far as local to that area, the negotiations were, the editor texts me, he's like, hey, I hear you're going to be at this place this time. Can I grab you for an interview? Me, yeah. What do you want to talk about? Oh, just the campaign, general stuff. I'm like, cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
That was the negotiation.
There was no headline
tell me the questions, or I don't know if I want to talk about this, or I don't want to talk about that. It was just generally, what is this about? Okay, and then I'll be there. Sure. And then we did it. And they wrote a newspaper article.
Yeah. That's the way it should be.
That's how it's supposed to be. It shouldn't be a big deal that you're, willing to talk. We're doing an interview right now.
Yeah.
You just come in and do it. I do it once a month.
I know.
It's a regular
we
thing.
did not go over any of the questions.
I park my car and I come in and we talk about politics.
That's the way it should be.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, going back to, I think it's just accepted now they're not going to do press conferences.
Right.
That's not even a topic.
Well, even Biden
that's
has
a
been
big
doing
difference.
very rare. And there's the politics and there's a good government side. And I think your point, Frank, is exactly right, that it's bad politics in the sense that it creates these big moments that maybe you're not prepared for, as opposed to a lot of little moments that you do well in and then are prepared for. And we saw that. But it's also, there's a governing side of this too, where these people are accountable to the voters.
And it's such a weird election.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there was no primary.
Especially the Democrat didn't go through a primary.
Yeah.
We went through a whole process, with
Nikki
Trump,
Haley,
as far as
Trump,
and you had other candidates, and there was discussions, and there was a contested primary.
Yeah,
we didn't have any of that with Harris. So even more, she should want to tell folks what her positions are. Now her positions, she claims are completely different from when she ran for president the last time, which was last election, but whatever.
Right.
It's so there. Maybe that's part of the reason she doesn't want to talk about it. But this is all. There's also just a health of the system side to this, where we should be able to ask the president or the vice president or anybody who wants that job serious questions.
The voters should absolutely know.
And the media should facilitate that in an unbiased way. And you should be mad that it's a big deal when a major candidate for office is having an interview.
Right.
It shouldn't be a big deal. It should be literally every single day, multiple times a day at this time of year.
And again, I go back to the press conferences because it's such a clear difference. You had all your press calls, which are very similar. Yep. We have no way of knowing when you did a press call what was going to be on there, who was going to be on there.
Right.
And sometimes those questions could get very interesting, right?
And stuff that I never expected to be asked.
And but that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Because I think it goes back to what we were saying about Walls. They have had it so cushy that when the moderator actually went back in on the Tiananmen Square question and said, no, could you answer it? That doesn't typically happen to a
follow-up.
Yeah, the follow-up.
No, you got to do this. Yeah.
I was actually shocked about that, and I still think the moderators were biased. That was one where
they
I
had the
think,
moment where they fact-checked Vance, even though it had been negotiated.
Yeah. So anyway, I found that really interesting, but we got to take our first break, unless you got something, Joe.
I was not in Tiananmen Square. Just for the record.
Just everybody knows.
I was 6 at the time.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
But y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Are you 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Call now and get this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers, from a leading financial firm on maximizing your income in retirement. And if you call right now, as a bonus, we'll throw in a free annuity rate report. Don't miss out on this opportunity because supplies are limited. Both books are yours free, just for calling Annuity General today.
Call 800-354-5972.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-977-4997. That's 1-800-977-4997, or go to Get.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And our guest this morning, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. Joe, we have so much to talk about, but I do want to kind of go back into the debate just really quickly. What do you think about the fact checks? I know we were just highlighting them, but it's now a common thing even on the Sunday programs. And for me, from a media perspective, I just find it so distracting and so unprofessional in a way.
Yeah, I think you have to go all one way or the other, right?
You're right.
If you are saying, and this was the real problem in both debates, right, where the presidential debate, the Harris-Trump debate, Trump got fact-checked, Harris didn't.
Right.
You can't have that.
No.
That's just completely ridiculous.
And numerous times
fact-checked.
Yeah.
And then because of that, it was negotiated in the VP debate, we're not going to do fact-checks. And then they still did at least once with the Republican nominee.
And then was so smug with the whole thanks for the law. He was right.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you incorrectly fact-checked.
So if you're gonna do it, you have to do it even-handedly.
Yeah.
And then you better be ready to know actually what you're talking about, because sometimes fact check isn't, well, what date did this happen?
Right.
Or what vote did you cast? It's, you are presenting this in a way I don't like. I don't like your opinion. I don't like your policy. So I'm going to debate you.
Yeah.
And bring you a counter argument to that. That's not fact checking. That's debating.
That's why Vance was so ready.
Right. And so, if you want to get, I think in like a one-on-one interview setting, it's a little different where you're having a discussion perhaps with the reporter and they want to tease out something. I can sort of understand that. But in a debate, it's not supposed to be between the moderator and the candidate. It's supposed to be between the two candidates. The moderator sort of throws up a jump ball like the beginning of a basketball game, and then they bat it around as they see fit. So if there's going to be fact checking in a debate setting, it should come from the other candidate.
Right.
You know, if my opponent says something goofy, well, then I could say, whoa, wait a minute, that's not correct.
Right.
You know, whatever. And then I'm free to present my own opinion, my own policy, because that's the choice that we're trying to tease out for the voter. And we're trying to debate ideas and come to arrive at truth or something. You know, there's a purpose for it. So you can't have, if you're gonna fact check, it's very, very difficult, especially in this day and age, to make it not a debate as opposed to a true fact check.
Right.
So it's easier and better, especially in a debate setting, to just say, all right, I'm gonna ask you, is the sky blue?
Right.
And you're going to tell me your answer, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
Right.
And just let the people decide. And then, certainly, and you know this is going to happen, everybody under the sun on social media and everybody under the sun on the panel after the debate is going to fact check and debate.
Yeah, that's
whatever.
a fine
and
time.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's I have no problem with that. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everybody's entitled to, and probably should do their own research before they come to a conclusion on how they're going to vote. That would be a healthy democracy if people did that. But you can't have it. It's my opinion, better to, in a debate setting, not have the fact check than have it.
Yes.
And if you're going to do it, you can't do it the way that they've been doing it.
Do you remember how shocking it was? The first fact check I remember was, I think it was Candy Crowley with Romney and Obama. And
Yeah.
Benghazi. Remember, that was like a new story.
That was a big
because
deal. What's
you're
she
not to
doing?
do this.
Right, yeah.
And so now it's just commonplace. I just find it from the standards of it's obnoxious.
Right.
I mean, and even if they were doing it to the other side, I just don't like the narrative that the moderators or the host of the Sunday program, they're the Wikipedia page or something.
Right.
It's just very.
They've taken on a role that isn't their role.
Yes.
And I think it's because we've gone from the mainstream media leaning left to the mainstream media being almost unanimously left.
And I think they've unfortunately proven that to a lot of people that kind of denied it for a long time.
Right.
But
yeah, there was this sort of feeling that,
wink,
that's
nudge,
a right-wing
nudge.
talking point. You just don't like scrutiny or something.
Yeah.
No, as somebody who's been an elected official and you've worked for Republican elected officials,
right?
The level of scrutiny that a Republican is under, is dramatically higher. The amount of pushback, like as you alluded to in the last segment, where when a Democrat gets pushback on an answer, they're like, they don't know how to handle it. Whereas that's par for the course for a Republican.
Do you remember when
learn it right away?
Nancy Pelosi got a quote unquote follow-up question? It wasn't even a tough one. Kate Turry, was that her name? On MSNBC.
On
Katie
MSNBC,
Turry
yeah.
on MSNBC. And Nancy Pelosi got so upset with the follow-up and suggested she was a Trump apologist.
That's right.
On MSNBC. So
and then if you went on social media the next day, all the people on the left are like, "How dare Katie Turry be a
actually ask a question,
Trump, whatever?" And she's pretty liberal.
Yes.
You know,
she even said her follow-up was, "I don't think anybody's ever accused me of that."
Yeah.
So, but that's a highlight, and that's why Biden, I think, gets angry for other issues too, but gets angry when that happens. And I think that's what threw again walls off so much with the follow-up question.
Used to dealing
and
with
that wasn't that as
that happens. That's not just a presidential level thing.
No,
that happens at every level of government.
No, and I heard people, kind of behind the scenes and stuff, people that I talked to, even in Washington, saying that it was interesting the week of when Biden was going to maybe that. Democrats are actually getting the questions. Republicans are normally reserved for
Republicans. They were getting the follow-up questions. They were getting the
we want to
follow you down the hallway
and
ambush you as you're walking around Capitol Hill. They were getting the here's the question. I'm going to say you had no comment unless you respond to me in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah,
all these sort of things that happen to Republicans daily as a regular standard operating procedure that suddenly the Democrats are dealing with it and they can't fathom it because I think Republicans view the press either, and some of them view that as openly adversarial.
Yeah.
But I think even if they don't have that particular, to go to that length, I think even almost all Republicans view them as like, all right, somebody you got to deal with, but they're not your friend.
Right.
They're part of the system.
I
think they're important.
Part of the job.
I think they're important
Back
part
to
of
what
the
you're
system.
saying.
Under the First Amendment, you can't have a healthy republic without a free press. So, they're an important part of the system. They're part of the job. I agree with that. That's sort of how you view it. It's sort of like the cost of doing business. Like, all right, this is part of the thing we have to deal with. We got to be ready for it. They are not viewed by any Republican as an ally or a friend or a buddy.
No.
And
you don't say after, let's go grab a beer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're just part of the whole thing that you deal with this particular job. I think there are Democrats that view it differently.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, these are our allies. These are our friends. We can get them the story we want out or whatever. And one, there's some professional ethical questions there.
Yes.
But then when your buddy turns on you and isn't just parroting what you want them to say and isn't just attacking the other guy, then there's not just sort of this anger, there's this like betrayal sort of edge to it. I think that's what you saw during that very brief moment.
You were supposed to be my friend.
Wait a minute.
I thought we were buddies.
What happened? When Biden was being shoved out of the race.
And just to be fair, if you look at it, when John McCain was very popular in the media because he was very quick to go across the aisle, the Maverick style, right? And then so I think in his mind, the media liked him and they were buddies. And then he got the nomination to be president of the United States.
McCain, it's interesting because so he ran against Bush in 2000. He was the outsider. He was the moderate, the Straight Talk Express. And so he was this media darling, right? Because he was going up against Bush was their boogeyman at the time. Yeah, from the moment he got the nomination, suddenly he's the boogeyman. Suddenly he's the bad guy. And then now the media portrays Bush and Romney and McCain as, what are these what a wonderful statesmen or whatever. And it's just because those folks, to some degree, and it's a little different for all three of them, don't get along with Trump. Well, let's go back and roll the tape on think of how the media treated Bush for his 2 terms. He was presented as this buffoon warmonger, whatever.
Of course.
McCain was beloved until he gets the nomination. Then he's, just Bush 2.0.
Right.
Romney, who now is portrayed as this,
hero,
positive person. He strapped his dog to the roof and
binders of women,
bullied 47%, whatever. And he's this, portrayed as this plutocrat jerk. And so.
Do you know which one shocks me the most?
Yeah.
Dick Cheney. Oh. Right? Now he's loved.
Right, yeah.
Now he's a statesman.
I've seen some things online where, to show just how interesting the Democratic coalition's gotten between, Ilhan Omar and Dick Cheney on the same team. It's just sort of an interesting thing.
But just now that the media is actually talking about Dick Cheney in a positive way.
Well, I think what happens is, and it's interesting now, to get philosophical, viewing this as an older person. I'm 41, right? So I have had the opportunity to live through several cycles and live through realignments and see things change. And if you're 15 or 20 or 23, the world sort of is as it is, and it feels like it's always been that way, and it's always going to be that way. And then you get older and you realize, no, things change pretty quickly.
Yes.
And if you're old enough to remember Bush Cheney, you're old enough to remember. I was talking about Benson and Dukakis.
Yeah, right.
I was 5, by the way, when that happened, but nevertheless,
your parents let you stay out that night.
Some kid is out there at TV Land going, "Who's Michael Dukakis?" And I'm like, you didn't miss anything. Hey, but when you get to that stage of life, you get this perspective that you can look back and say, "Oh, wait a minute."
Yeah.
Just because the media is all hepped up that this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. That may be true, that may not be true, and you need to take a pause and assess things for yourself. I saw something yesterday where Jimmy Carter turned 100.
Yeah, October 1st. Wasn't that amazing?
Which is
remarkable. First president to do so.
He's been the oldest president ever for several years already.
Yeah.
And he's now 100, and God bless him. And somebody pulled up his map when he won in 76. He won New York, he won Texas.
Yeah.
And he won all of the Southeast.
Yeah.
And he loses, big chunks of the way. So it's a map that would make no sense in 2024 politics. It would have made no sense in year 2000 politics.
Right.
But it made perfect sense in 1976.
Yeah.
And that's within Jimmy Carter's lifetime. That's within the living memory of,
many
a large
viewers.
chunk of the electorate. Things change and things move. And by the way, Jimmy Carter was the first president ever to be born in a hospital.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Which is also wild.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
it was so interesting to see all the facts about his life. It was good to see he went out and there wasn't a lot of pictures, but
yeah,
got
he
to
had his
celebrate.
family with him, and anybody turns 100.
Yeah,
and, that's respect, and I'm glad his family was with him. And
amazing. And
I hope his health. He's been in hospice for quite a long time.
Since February of last year.
Yeah. So.
And I thought this was such a weird way to word it. Someone that's a close family friend said, Jimmy Carter's been great at everything in his life, but not hospice. That's a horrible way of putting that. But then she goes, but that's a good thing. I'm like, there's a better way.
A little weird phrase. I wish
weird.
nothing but health and well-being to Carter and the Carter family.
Yeah, so amazing. All right, let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Oh, I looked at the wrong number here, Joe. I'll get this in eventually.
Litterback. When cat litters are so heavy it hurts. If you suffer from litterback, try Tidy Cats Lightweight. Now with astounding 21-day odor control. At the Tidy Cats Innovation Lab, we've got your back. Tidy Cats Lightweight.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Your wallet is always in danger. Criminals can hack your information without you even knowing. Introducing Slim Mint, an ultra-thin RFID blocking wallet that keeps your cards and cash protected. Slim Mint uses the latest RFID blocking technology to prevent thieves from stealing your info. It's ergonomically designed to optimize space and keep your belongings organized. With the auto-locking Slim Mint, your cards and money stay securely in place. It has a built-in cash clip and a flexible outer band to fit your additional cards and cash. Call or click now and get Slim Mint for just $29.99. Order in the next 5 minutes and you'll get an instant $10 discount. So it's only $19.99. But wait, due to rising costs, this may be your last chance to get Slim Mint at this low price. There's a strict limit of 3 Slim Mint wallets while supplies last. Don't wait, order now.
Call 1-800-654-6604. Call or visit slimmintwallet.com. So call 1-800-654-6604. Order now.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Our guest this morning, former Congressman, current Assembly candidate, and current Steuben County Republican Chair, Joe Sempolinski is joining us. And Joe, we're going to talk about the local races and all that coming up in just a little bit. There's so many other things to get to. I wanted to pick your brain, and I kind of throwing this out of left field because I didn't tell you about it. Does Mayor Adams and what's happening in the city, do you think that affects? Oh, no. Do you think that affects? I'm not going anywhere. But does it affect the elections this November, do you think?
I would say a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it's a New York City thing,
right?
And New York is New York, so we're sort of the polls are their polls are significantly tighter than they've been the last 2 elections in New York.
Yeah.
But New York's sort of its own animal, and what I'm interested in.
I think I know where this is going.
You think I know? Because there's a guy we've talked about a lot. Over the years.
Yeah.
We talked about on the radio version of this very fine program.
Yeah, years ago.
The disgraced former governor.
I know.
Andrew Cuomo.
That's why I really brought it up.
Yeah. He's our punching bag here.
He's run it, right?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how could he pass it up?
No.
The guy's a nut job.
Yeah.
Can't-
He's got that politics. He's got to have.
He's got it in his blood. He's
Yeah.
gotta come out.
And then you figure, in his mind anyway, because this is a guy that was still willing to run for president with polling less than 1% back in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember? So I could see this in his mind being, hey, do this a couple of years, do a good job.
Yeah.
What's next?
That's right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because he does not believe his career's done.
No.
And you saw that with the smug answers he gave to the congressional hearing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Where he's blaming everybody. He's blaming Trump.
Yeah.
He's blaming everybody.
And
So that is going to get interesting. And the other piece that's interesting is they have a very unusual and unique electoral format in New York City, which is ranked choice voting. So,
oh yeah, that's right.
So the way you vote, if there's 10 candidates on the ballot, you rank your preferences for all of them. You don't just vote for one. You say, I like this one best, I like this one second best, what have you. And then they do a instant runoff where the person with the least votes gets eliminated, and everybody that on those ballots that put them first, their second choice now gets the votes, and and the computer does it, and you end up with somebody getting 50%. And once somebody gets 50%, it's over. So what that means is, if you were Adams under a normal plurality system like we have in the Elmira media market,
sure,
you would say, ooh, I've got 3 or 4 people on the far left running. Andrew Cuomo gets in. They all split the vote. I win with 32% of the vote. I get reelected.
Right.
That's not the case, because then they would have this runoff.
Right.
So if you're Cuomo, you go, ooh,
yeah,
they aren't splitting my vote.
Right.
They're going to beat them up from the left. I come in, and apparently their bases sort of overlap, because Cuomo is, and this is how bonkers New York City is, people. Cuomo is perceived as a moderate, and Adams is perceived as a moderate in New York City. I don't perceive them as a moderate, but whatever. In New York City, Democrat Party politics, Adams and Cuomo are perceived as moderates, and their base, their most loyal base, is sort of Brooklyn, Queens, African-American Democrat primary voters. Both of them. And so Cuomo was like, ooh, maybe I don't want to run against Adams because he's got the same base I do. He's got it on lockdown. And then he starts having all these ridiculous problems.
Yeah.
He's apparently owned by the Turkish government.
Out of everything.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Everything, yeah.
I mean, some real weird stuff. And now Cuomo sees that opening where, that's a big block of votes. That's his most loyal folks that didn't want him. Those are the people that didn't want him to leave as governor. And the person that's getting those votes is now going away or compromised. And so I think it would be very difficult for Andrew Cuomo to pass this up. And we'll know soon.
Yeah.
Because, we're talking about a June of next year primary. So these decisions have to be made in the next several weeks.
And just the fact so many
a lot of these opponents have already come out, and Cuomo has the ability to wait because he's got universal name ID. But I would say we'll know in the next 30 days if we're getting Cuomo versus Adams versus all these other folks.
All right, Joe. So I made a mistake. I haven't been paying attention to the viewers' comments, and I'm going to skip over a couple, but they're only because I don't have time to read them all live. But we're going to go through a couple comments here.
Okay.
I wonder what Joe's take is that Harris accepted the position of VP, given that she called her former boss a bigot, right? That was her claim to fame.
That's an excellent question.
Doesn't that seem counterintuitive? I mean, why would you work for someone who you essentially think is a bigot?
What is interesting about that is if you can go to Real Clear Politics, they keep the tracking averages of all the old races. And you can pull up the Democratic primary from 4 years ago, and you can see, here's how Biden was doing. And Harris, it's like, not good, not kind of good, not good. Boop.
Oh, yeah.
And it was when she called him, effectively a racist.
Yeah.
And then right back down. So the only notable moment, she didn't even make it to when people were actually voting. She didn't make it out.
She didn't make it out of 2019.
Right. The only notable moment of her campaign was calling
her now boss,
Joe Biden, as some sort of racist.
Yeah.
And then she gets the nomination.
Yeah.
I think the question asked, what does that say about Kamala Harris? Well, I think it certainly says some things about Kamala Harris as far as her ambition. That, either she's just so ambitious that she doesn't care. If the critique of Biden she felt was true, then she's so ambitious she just doesn't care.
Right.
Or it says something about Kamala Harris's disingenuousness, that she's willing to just throw around, you're a racist, whatever, and it's baloney because as soon as it's to her interest, she's suddenly your friend. It also, and I think more importantly, says some really goofy things about Joe Biden.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Because frankly, if somebody's only notable moment of their campaign was calling me some horrible name, do you think I would make them the vice president of the United States and put them in a position?
Well, you did make me your communications director.
And put them in a position where perhaps that person wants to push me aside later.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it says some things about Harris's ambition and disingenuousness, but it also says some things about Joe Biden's poor judgment. So
that was a good question.
That was an excellent question.
Okay. I got a comment that I'm skipping criticism. I'm not. I really am skipping over trying to get all the questions in. How does Joe feel about early voting? Does he trust that vote will get counted? That's a question I get a lot.
Yeah, early voting. So the Republican Party has a big push on early voting. That's from Donald Trump all the way on down. There's complete harmony on this, and even during the primary, there was agreement. You know, Trump and Haley and DeSantis and all these people. The system is what the system is. You know, the rules are what the rules are.
Right.
You may feel there's too much early voting. You may feel there shouldn't be early voting, and you're certainly entitled to that philosophical opinion. But those are the rules, and to go into the election with one hand tied behind your back is, I think, unwise. President Trump and, again, the RNC and everybody certainly feels that way. And, again, people that were running against Donald Trump in the primary felt that way. The perfect example is the special election for Congress in the 3rd District earlier this year, where the Democrats came out much more in the early vote. And then there was a blizzard on Election Day.
Oh, that's right.
And it drove down the Election Day vote and certainly impacted that margin. They asked about the election integrity question. What I would say is one of the positives to early vote is it is the same mechanism as the Election Day vote. You are voting in person, by and large. That's a whole other thing in New York. But by and large, you're voting in person, and you're voting on the same machine you would vote on the regular Election Day. So there's not the mailing of the ballots, by and large.
Right.
There's not a chain of custody issue. So you should be no more or less confident about early vote than you are Election Day vote. It doesn't have the additional issues of rampant absenteeism or universal mail-in ballots, which is what they have in some states.
Right.
Now, one thing that is a problem in New York is the New York State Constitution lists very specific reasons for which you can vote absentee. And there was a referendum 3 years ago as to to change the Constitution to allow everybody to vote absentee. That referendum failed. The people rejected it. The people did not want no excuse absentee voting. So what the Democrats in the legislature did is they went around that and they said, oh, no, when you request that ballot, you're not requesting a absentee ballot with no excuse. You're requesting your early ballot through the mail. And since the Constitution doesn't contemplate early voting, they said it was different. The courts, shockingly and incorrectly, in my opinion, upheld it because it went against certainly the spirit of that provision of the Constitution. So potato, tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
It's something that is effectively the same as no excuse.
I was so
absenteeism.
confused when I first heard about it because that's what it sounded like to me. Right. And I had a friend that was going to be out of town ask me about that. And
so we have effective no excuse absenteeism.
Yeah.
They just call it something different as a legal fiction.
Yeah.
So you can request your early vote ballot sent to you through the mail. That presents more concerns for chain of custody and more opportunity for false ballots being filed than early voting in person on the machine. So again, if you have concerns about the votes being counted, that those are your concerns to have, but they shouldn't be worse or better for in-person early voting.
Sure. We've got more comments from viewers. Let me play a little catch up on that, and let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
You just have to get in the seat of a John Deere 1 Series tractor. Not because of how easy it is to use, or because of our expert dealers. Not even because it has implements for every job. You just have to get in the seat, because breaking ground on your dream home feels pretty great.
Right now at Lindsay Equipment, get up to $1,000 off and 0% financing for 60 months on all 2023 John Deere compact tractors in stock.
Hi, I'm Sam. Welcome
to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world. Over 50 teas, a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Globally inspired cuisine and striving to give you an ultimate experience. Come in and try the frankly delicious Turkey Club special for just $20, including your beverage of choice. Pangea Global Tea House. Yet a really good tea house bringing you the flavors of the world, offering something for everyone.
Imagine a knife taking this much abuse and didn't need sharpening. Introducing the incredible NutriBlade knives, coated with granite stone non-stick and made of stainless steel, one of the hardest substances on earth. Now everyone can chop, slice, and dice just like a pro. Order right now to get this professional 6-piece set of NutriBlades for just $29.95. We'll even ship them to you free. Get your own NutriBlade knives, the last knife.
We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning as we are joined by former Congressman, current Assembly candidate, and current Steuben County Republican chair. We're running short on time, Joe, but I want to make sure we get to all these comments. Okay, we got a nice wave from Bath. Okay, you bring up, and this is not the same person from Bath, you bring up Eric Adams and the effects on the elections. How about the criminal activity of Donald Trump per yesterday's release?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of discussion.
And they did accuse you of bias.
They accused me of bias. Well, I am not a journalist. I am here as the chairman of the Republican Party. So there is my disclosed bias.
Yes.
I am the chairman of the Republican Party.
I'll get you a disclaimer next
That's
time.
right, yeah.
Yes.
So there is a...
But I think their question, obviously that was a big story in certain circles.
Sure. And I think this is, as far as impact on the election, certainly there's been a lot of impact on the election. And I think there's a lot of concerns, and to sort of contrast it with the Adams, they're pointing very tangibly to, and again, alleged allegations of defrauding the public financing system with illegal foreign donations and straw donations from Turkey. And that's a very tangible thing. That's a very tangible theft crime. When you look at the things Donald Trump has had people go after him for, the one that's particularly egregious was the Trump Corporation one.
Yeah.
That was something that was basically a filing error. Right? How you classified an expense in a private corporation. And the Trump Corporation is that entity is not publicly traded. Some of his other things are, but that is not. And suddenly, instead of a fine or a misdemeanor or whatever, it becomes multiple felonies. So to equate those two types of things is very different. I think every accusation, every indictment needs to be judged on its merits.
Sure.
And judged in the context. So, the evidence with Mr. Adams is very tangible. He has not received his day in court.
No.
He is accused. These are all alleged activities. Donald Trump, there's a legitimate question as to, and I think in the minds of a lot of people, not just Republicans I've talked to, but independents and some Democrats as well. With these charges, again, we're talking about, in the case of the Trump Corporation ones, misclassifying an expenditure.
Right.
Do you really believe those charges would be brought if he wasn't running for president again?
Right.
I certainly do not.
Right.
And when you have that type of activity, and in many cases that I've talked to people, they see this. They just want to be able to slap the name felon on this person.
Sure.
As if that was some sort of silver bullet to win an election. That's very disturbing. You can like Donald Trump. You can dislike Donald Trump. You can like any particular candidate. You can dislike any particular candidate. But when you are in a situation where very reasonable people are going, "Ooh,
yeah,
this is something that really looks like the current regime in power is trying to eliminate legally through the courts the leading opposition political figure in the country." And I think what you saw with the reaction was the people that reacted very negatively to the legal things that they've been going after Donald Trump on over the course of this campaign, it wasn't just hardcore Trump supporters.
Mm-hmm.
It was also Republicans who were skeptical of Trump. It was also independents. And when we're in that place where we're having that legitimate conversation, that's a dangerous place for the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody deserves their day in court. All charges have to be judged on their own merits. But there's certainly, of the things he's been charged with, there's been some real weak sauce there. And there's also very interesting questions about timing, where if these things were such a big deal, anything he's been accused of is such a big deal, why are we having this conversation
October 3rd.
in October of 2024? Why isn't this something that was dealt with in 2021?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a legitimate question also.
Sure. Appreciate the comments. Appreciate you watching. Okay, another couple comments here. This one's just a complete comment. My grandpa would say a politician would never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Thanks. That's probably true, right? Okay, here's another comment. You've got like a new tagline. I'm so impressed with Joe. He is like watching a professor talk about politics, but in an entertaining way, and no, this is not his mother. So that's the new.
She knows
she's ready.
that I always. Yeah.
So
must
there
be
you go.
my answer.
Yeah. Some kin. All right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And actually, no. In all seriousness, I think that's part of my job. And as somebody that worked for me when I was in office, I served on the education committee. And how many schools did I think we did 20 schools in 112 days or something. Something on that level. And it means part of the job is you go legislate and you handle constituent service, but if I can put a human face on civic issues and on understanding how the republic functions or doesn't function, I think that's an important public service, and I think that's something that's lacking in modern culture. So I really appreciate that.
That is nice.
That comment that if somebody walks away from this, whether they're a Republican or Democrat, whether they agree with me or disagree, whether they like a particular candidate or not, but they feel like they understand what is going on in a deeper way, I think I've accomplished something. So that's very nice.
And final comment, and I'm even hesitant to bring this one up, but I'm going to anyway. Joe, thanks for sneaking in the back door so that the demonstrators didn't know that you were in town. Because if you recall, last time you got the protest.
No,
we like nice, quiet streets, they
right
say.
there. I'm parked right in front of Democrat headquarters.
You are.
Yeah.
I saw people taking pictures.
Yeah.
We like nice, quiet streets. So thank you for that comment. I hope we didn't jinx anything. All right, we got to take our last break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
You rip and tear your old statements and bills, but thieves use this information to steal your identity. Don't be a victim. Get the ID Police, the new ink roller that encrypts all your old documents. So before you throw it out, just roll it on, and your information is gone, both on the front and through the back. Even if the paper is held up to the light, even your medical information is safe with the ID Police. So block it out before you throw it out. Order now and get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 and get free shipping too. This offer is not available on Amazon, so call or click now to get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-898-1002. That's 1-800-898-1002 or visit getidpolice.com. So call 1-800-898-1002. Order now.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. Almost forgot the name, Joe. No, I was trying to think because we haven't talked about the local issues. And I want to highlight, as you jokingly referred to yourself in the last segment, that you are the current Steuben County Republican chair.
Newly reelected.
Oh, congratulations.
I just got reelected, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
I'm excited.
Yeah, you should be. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
So tell us about the local races, how they're shaping up. We've been it's starting to get really crowded that time of year. That I love, where I'm talking 2 or 3 interviews.
They know if they're talking to Frank, they're talking to the people. So
when's the last time Trump won?
What was that?
When was the last time Trump won the presidency?
When he talked to you.
And when did he lose? The year he didn't call. Just something to keep in mind. Just something to keep in mind.
You know, so I mean, he should be sitting right here.
Yes,
and so should
in New York.
Yes, right. We should get we do the debate.
Yes,
we do the debate right here.
This is the one he agrees to.
Exactly. I'll do it if it's Frank.
Fox or Frank.
That's right. That's it.
And then he gets both.
That's right. Well, would you fact check?
Yes.
Oh.
No, I wouldn't. And I'm not quick enough to mute microphones and stuff.
Exactly.
So it's a headache. I don't want it. All right.
So we do have some big races. We just had actually. We had a great event with the Women's Republican Club in Steuben County a few days ago, where we had all the judicial candidates there. We've got 2 slots up on the Supreme Court. The Republican nominees are Ed White and Stacey Romeo, very good candidates. Like I said, I was just with them in Irwin. At the county level, Chris Tunney's unopposed, so he's feeling
pretty
good.
Yeah.
And then we have Matt McCarthy running, who is opposed and is definitely the qualified candidate in that race. There's no doubt about it. And then Chris Ferratella in the city. So if you live in the city of Corning, there's going to be 5 different judicial votes that you cast, and none of those 5 are running against each other. So you can vote for all 5 of those people I mentioned. 2 state Supreme Court, 2 county court. One will be listed as surrogate, one will be listed as county and family court, and then city court. If you're in Steuben County elsewhere, the portion of the county that is not in the city of Corning, then Mr. Ferratella won't be on the ballot, but the other 4 will be. And I'm very excited about that whole judicial ticket. Other contested races, my race for the Assembly in the 148th District, if you're in the south of Hornell, if you're in this media market south of Hornell. Andrea Bailey is running in the 133rd Assembly District, replacing Marjorie Burns, who's retiring. That's northern Steuben, Wayland, Cohocton, that area. Mr. Palmisano's unopposed at the Assembly level. Mr. O'Mara's unopposed. And Congressman Langworthy has an opponent. My successor in Congress, I'll be voting for Mr. Langworthy in November. And he has an opponent, so we need to get out and support Mr. Langworthy. So at the local, regional level, there is quite a bit going on. Sort of the local highlight is the judicial races.
Yeah.
And again, I can't say enough wonderful things about Judge McCarthy. He's a longtime friend of mine, but more importantly, he is simply the most qualified individual in Steuben County to be running for county and family court, period. There is nobody of any political affiliation that is more qualified for that job. And I really feel that the folks need to vote for him. I'll be voting for him very proudly. And
how's your race going?
Oh, my race is going very well.
Because you have an opponent.
I have an opponent. I do have an opponent, and we're working very hard. We're out campaigning. I'm here in Corning today doing this interview, and then I'm going to be in Olean and Wellsville over the course of this afternoon and evening, and speaking at an event in Allegheny County tonight. So it's a fun time of year to be out talking to folks, try and incorporate the family where I can. I have 2 little kids, so we try and bring them when there's like a festival.
They're starting to slow down, though, the festivals and the fairs a little bit.
Yeah, we had like a little burst of them. We had one weekend
on the week of the
21st.
21st, it was like everything was scheduled. Harvest Fest, everything.
Yeah,
but anyway.
yeah. So you get that sort of fall, nice weather.
Yeah,
and then we'll get into the silly season of campaigning here over the next month.
Yes.
Month and 2 days. But it's going very well. If you live in the 148th Assembly District, which in this media market, you're talking Canisteo, Jasper, Truceburg, Greenwood, Rexville, Hartsville, that area, please get out and vote. And also for the other folks that I just mentioned here at the state and at the regional and local level.
Just before we go, because I have like a minute to kill, what have you been thinking about the bill so far?
I mean, Allen looks incredible.
Yeah.
It seems like you can plug him into any offense. Defense looked shaky against the Ravens.
Yes.
Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick Henry's a generational talent, but he ran through them like they weren't even there. This weekend, the reunion of Allen and Diggs on opposite sides of the field will be very interesting. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday. I'll be watching.
Yeah, it's got an interesting year. But so one other thing, Joe, and I don't know if we have all the specifics before we go, and I have a little. I was going to ask you off there if you want to bring up, but you do have a big fundraiser coming up for the Republicans.
Oh yes, October 19th.
Okay.
The Steuben, Chemung, and Schuyler Republicans, all three together. We're doing one big fall event together. October 19th, the evening of October 19th. It's at the Arnott Mall Events Center. You can go to gopfallfest.com and buy a ticket.
Oh, wow. And if people want to get involved, because it's not too late, we've got a little over a month.
Yeah, joe.semplowski@gmail. Email me.
You see the
and
name
like I said, I just got reelected for a new 2-year term. Those elections happen in September. It's a little different because it's a party thing. But I will be party chairman for another 2 years.
So, and I do want to highlight, it's not too late to get involved, because I know a lot of people are passionate.
No, it's not too late to get involved. And obviously, the most important thing that everyone should do is vote.
Yes.
Is please. The Republic does not function if people do not cast a educated, thoughtful vote. And please, I ask everybody to do that.
Couldn't agree more. Joe, thanks so much for being on the show.
Always a pleasure.
All right, we'll talk one more time before the election. How's that?
Okay.
All right, we'll make it work.
Fun.
Just to wrap things up. Okay, just before we go, tomorrow we got a very busy show. I hope that you tune in starting at 6. We're going to be talking with Cody Murphy and Sean Williams from the new Elmira Aviators hockey team. That'll be tomorrow. Also, Brian Maggs, running for Chemung County Judge for Family Court. He'll be in. That's live right around 7 o'clock. And then we'll be hearing from Apple Ridge and RAAD Rad about tomorrow's health fair from 1 to 3. So, make sure you tune in starting at 6, and I hope that you have a great day. And join us every weekday morning for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you bright and early tomorrow. I look forward to it. Already have a great day, everyone.